It is I who must begin. Once I begin, once I try, here and now, right where I am, not excusing myself by saying things would be easier elsewhere, without grand speeches and ostentatious gestures, but all the more persistently to live in harmony with the voice of being, as I understand it within myself. As soon as I begin that, I suddenly discover, to my surprise, that I am neither the only one, nor the first, nor the most important one to have set out upon that road. Whether all is really lost or not depends entirely on whether or not I am lost. Vaclav Havel. Czechoslovakia, 1948 to 1989. Soviet communism. A people subjected to the pressure of their government. The pressure of the USSR. Vaclav Havel, playwright and poet, changed this. He changed it all. Through the Declaration of Charter 77, the Civic Forum, and the series of peaceful protests making up Czechoslovakia's Velvet Revolution, Havel broke the barrier of Soviet communism. On February 25th, 1948, the Czechoslovakian government was handed over to the Soviets against the will of the people. After devastating pressure from the USSR, Edvard Beneš was forced to sign over his country. Soviets rigged false elections and Czechoslovakia became a one-party nation, entirely backed by the USSR. Czechoslovakia had fallen under the Iron Curtain and behind the Eastern Bloc. Everything changed for the worse about the lives of Czechoslovakian citizens. They were stripped of all freedoms and privacy. Homes were interrogated and innocent people jailed. Anyone who opposed the government suffered dearly. Vaclav Havel was among these citizens. Although born into a wealthy family, Havel was denied higher education because of his bourgeois background. After high school, Havel was not permitted to attend the college of his choice and found himself stripped of all rights and opportunities. Alexander Dubček, Czechoslovakian politician, was one of the first to openly oppose the government's Soviet ideals. In 1968, Dubček brought about the Prague Spring, an effort to free Czechoslovakia from Soviet rule through socialism with a human face. Dubček attempted to open trade with Western countries and give the people of Czechoslovakia more freedoms. His attempts failed. The Prague Spring failed. In that same year, the Soviets, along with 3 other Warsaw Pact countries, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Poland, invaded Czechoslovakia following the orders of Leonid Brezhnev, a Soviet politician, removing Dubček from power and ending the Prague Spring. Although the Prague Spring failed, Dubček's ideals carried on and brought hope to the people of Czechoslovakia. Protests against the Soviet troops and the communist government ensued almost immediately after the invasion. In 1969, Jan Palach burned himself to death in protest, and more demonstrations carried on after his funeral, some even following in his very footsteps. Then, in 1975, Czechoslovakia signed the Helsinki Accords, a document signed by 35 countries protecting the human rights of their citizens, no matter what race, gender, or political views. But what seemed like a change in direction did not slant the course of the country at all. The promise they made by signing the accords was not honored, but broken. The Soviet-backed government fully and utterly neglected the accords. Nothing seemed to change. The rights of Czechoslovakian citizens were denied again and again. Havel's writings criticized these actions and the communist beliefs of the government. In Havel's plays The Memorandum and The Garden Party, he expresses the struggles of simple daily life in Czechoslovakia and the lack of opportunities under the communist regime. In his poem Estrangement, Havel uses a series of dots in a maze-like pattern that separate the J and the A from the Czech word ja, which means I. This poem expresses how life under communism prevents him from feeling that he has a unified identity. Under communism, he is estranged from himself. His writing was a way for Havel to express his discontent and desire for a better future. Havel was not alone. Other artists also used their art to fight against communism. In 1976, the rock band The Plastic People of the Universe were arrested simply for lyrics that the communists felt were unacceptable. For Havel and many others, this arrest was the final straw. They knew that someone needed to stand up against the communist government and demand basic human rights. This rock band can be credited for inspiring many protests against Soviet power. One of the most powerful protests was arranged by a group called the Singers. They helped mobilize many younger Czechs to fight against the government. But perhaps one of the most influential protests inspired by the Plastic People of the Universe was Charter 77. Charter 77 was an informal set of documents criticizing the Czechoslovakian government. It specifically focused on violations of the people's human rights. Charter 77 not only provided complaints, but solutions to resolve major problems without outwardly creating an oppositional force or party towards the current government. The Charter welcomed anyone and everyone who supported and agreed with its cause. This dissident movement, written by Jiří Hayek, an author, Jan Patočka, a philosopher, and the future president of Czechoslovakia, Vaclav Havel, was the start of the downfall of Soviet power in Czechoslovakia. Charter 77 set a foundation and a guideline for Czechoslovakia's Velvet Revolution. Havel soon went on to be the leader and face of the Velvet Revolution and was able to successfully rally and unite the public and lead them against the corruption of the communist government. He was in the middle of it all. In 1989, peaceful protests roared through Czechoslovakia, commemorating the 20th anniversary of Jan Palach's sacrifice and demonstration against the corruption of the government. Protests picked up speed and power throughout the remainder of 1989, and it became clear to the Czechoslovakia communist government that there was no alternative solution other than independence from Soviet power. They could not back down. There, the Civic Forum, led by Havel, took its roots, allowing the people confrontation with the government, and Czech politics finally started to give way. Then, on December 29th, 1989, the barrier of Soviet communism and control was broken, and the Iron Curtain in Czechoslovakia was parted. Havel had led Czechoslovakia to its independence. Havel was elected president of Czechoslovakia through the first free election since Soviet control. Change throughout the country started immediately after the election. The people of Czechoslovakia were finally free. They were safe. Now, today, Havel's legacy still lives on. The people of the Czech Republic and Slovakia are still fighting for the very things Havel fought for: the welfare of their countries and its citizens. On June 23, 2019, peaceful protests with numbers of more than 200,000 poured through Prague, fighting for the resignation of Prime Minister Andrej Babiš. On September 20th, 2019, a protest of over 70,000 ripped through Slovakia, protesting the murder of reporter Jan Kuciak. Havel not only broke the barrier of communism in Czechoslovakia and helped create a free democratic nation, but set a precedent for common people to join together and face the problems that they are experiencing. There have been many revolutions fighting for human rights, many successful, some not so much. Czechoslovakia's Velvet Revolution is an example of success. It has set a model for other countries to follow and push past the barrier of communism. But most importantly, it has shown that there can be revolution without violence. Czechoslovakia broke through the barrier of communism and has set an example of success through peace.